What's up everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today, I appreciate you. In today's video, I want to share with you a part 1 of how I go about tattooing clouds. Should you have any questions at all at any point throughout this video, I'm going to highly encourage you to drop a comment down below. I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I also have social medias under the same name as my YouTube channel. I would truly appreciate your support over there as well. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring my bell, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. Should you enjoy my channel and find my videos helpful, consider becoming a patron or sending over a super thanks, as I would truly appreciate your support. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive straight on into this. Before we dive right on in, please keep in mind that I'm going to be breaking down how I go about tattooing clouds into multiple parts. So I'm going to have part 1, for example, part 2, and then we will have a part 3 where we put our learnings to the test and we do another design together. I will be leaving these links to these designs for you in the description below, so that way you can download them on your end and follow along should you choose to do so. I feel like we should take it from the very top. Please keep in mind also that tattooing clouds is going to vary from artist to artist. It's going to be fully artist subjective, to each their own. So therefore, I kind of want you to take what you can from this video and leave what you don't like, and then kind of try to mesh your own style. Some questions that come to mind off the top when I am thinking about clouds is the overall design. What does the design itself consist of? Majority is the design that I'm doing line dominant with some shading in the right spots, or is a tattoo that I'm doing more shading than it is lining? So you kind of get my logic. For me personally, I'm always thinking about the entire piece at hand. So let's just say if we are doing clouds to begin a sleeve, we're going to want to think about the work that's going to be put onto that sleeve later on, and that right there would help me determine the style of clouds that I'm going to be choosing. Not only the style of clouds that I'm going to be choosing, what I'm going to be using to accomplish those clouds. So you can kind of hear that I'm already beginning to plan out the tattoo. I'm already beginning to get an idea of what I'm going to need to be using, what motions I'm going to need to be making to accomplish certain looking clouds. If we're feeling a bit, let's say, bombarded or maybe even stressed out about the idea of not being able to do clouds, in this video I'm going to break it down to some simple ways that I go about doing clouds, and I'm going to share with you all of that. Now that's where we would want to start. Let's go ahead and take a deep breath. Let's go ahead and calm everything down and cancel out the noise, and let's begin simple. Let's start small, let's start simple, let's go ahead and keep it there, and then as we build up some fundamentals we can kind of get more advanced as we go. So one thing for me is I could accomplish clouds using lines, and I could accomplish clouds using only shading. So for this video we're going to stick with the line aspect of doing clouds with lines. Part 2 will be doing clouds with just shading, and then part 3 will put our learnings to the test. It should go down something like that. Point is, keep in mind that we can go about doing clouds however our artistic insight allows us to do so. So for me, I'm going to be using lines and some stipple shading for this demonstration right here. We could even do the shading with the mag should we choose to do so. To each their own. I'm going to get into the tools here in a second. Once we figure out the type of clouds that we want to be doing, we could then begin figuring out the tools that we're going to be using to accomplish those clouds. So since I am going to be using lines for this demonstration and working off of those lines, I'm going to go with a round liner and probably a 3-round liner for the shading. However, we can still use a curve mag if we'd like. We can use a straight mag. We can use anything that we feel comfortable with. What I think a good thing to practice right now would be being comfortable picking out the needles and gear that we're going to be using, having that point A to B, having the whys to everything, and being able to plan everything out thoroughly. That's what I want us to practice right now as we're prepping for this tattoo. Understanding that I'm going to be using lines to accomplish these clouds right here on part 1 will allow me to now start picking the needles and the machine that would best suit these needs. For part 1, since I want to accomplish shading and lining, I'm going to be using the CNC Q2 Terminator. I also have an in-depth review coming on this tattoo machine, along with the Inkclaw wireless power supply. This is a 3.5 stroke, so therefore I could accomplish lining and shading with this machine. And I do need both fundamentals. I need my lining and I need my shading for this specific demonstration. Right here I have an assortment. I have some Emalla needles. I have a rain needle. This one's going to be a 003 3-round liner. This one's going to be 5-round liner 00, standard 7-round liner, 9-round liner long taper. These are CNC Police. This is a Rain. These are Emmallas right here. This is an Inkclaw standard 7-round shader, and here is a So Long Tattoo 9-round mag. Any of these needles I feel would work great. However, that's not to say whatever you're picking on your end won't work great. The idea is to practice picking needles that you're comfortable with. Me personally, I'm thinking something along the lines of either the standard 7-round liner or the standard 7-round shader. I do feel that either one of these needles would be great to go ahead and line my clouds with. What would determine which one I pick would be if I want the clouds to have like a bolder line to them, I probably will go with a round shader. If I want the lines to be more subtle and blend in with the shading that we're going to do, I'll probably go with a tighter configuration to have a thinner line. So that's the logic behind why I'm going to be picking the needles that I'm picking. It all depends on how I want the design to look, and this is where our artistic insight and input comes into play. For me personally, I want a heavier line weight, so I probably will use the Inkclaw 7-round shader for these lines, or again maybe the standard 7-round liner, the CNC Police. For the shading, I'm going to be using the 3-round liner from Emalla. So that's how I may go about it. If it does change, I'll let you know as that does change. Understanding the design allowed me to better pick the gear and equip me to accomplish this design right here. Now let's get into tattooing inks. For the specific clouds that I'm going to be going for today, I probably want to line out these clouds with maybe either straight black and or let's say for example the 80% of this dynamic gray wash set. So now I want to start picking what inks I'm going to be using and why. Since I am doing clouds, I want them to have different tones. I don't want them to all be the same darkness. I don't want to make a flat looking appearance. I kind of want them to look further back. I want them to have some sort of interest and or dimension depth to them. And in order to accomplish that, I'm going to be using different shades of black here. So you can see, for example, that I'm using this dynamic gray wash set. I have 20, 40, 60, and 80 right here. I have done an in-depth review on these, so be sure to check that out. I'm going to be using these different tones right here to create that sort of effect within my clouds. Now, I'm not going to be using straight black the entire way, so I'm going to have these ink caps set up. These are from Easy Tattoo Supply. I'm going to put straight black in the first one, and then I'm going to do 20, 40, 60, and 80 in the rest right here. And that is going to be my ink setup. So this one's straight black dynamic, 20, 40, 60, 80. And that is just to confirm the ink setup that I'm going to be using for part 1 of these clouds. And more than likely, I'm going to be using this exact same ink setup for part 2 and 3 as well. Off the bat, my logic is to go and line out these clouds right here with straight black and then kind of work from there. I want to determine if I want this darker cloud to be lighter or if I want the higher clouds up here to be lighter, and then I'm going to go from there. So for example, let's say I wanted these clouds to be darker down here. I'm probably going to go ahead and line it with the straight black until I'm done with part 1, and then I'm going to go in there with like the 60 or the 80, and then I'm going to add my shading, and then on this part up here I'm probably going to go to like the 40 and then the 20, so that way I'm creating interest and variation throughout the clouds and they're not all the same tone. That's one way that we can go about it, and or we can just have them all the same tone should we choose to do so. We can start at the 60 and shade with 60 all the way through. Again, you kind of get the idea. I want you to get comfortable with picking out how you want to approach it. Just have some reasoning behind why you want to do it. Try to have an envision of what it's going to look like when it's done. The reason why I'm going to line with the straight black is because straight black is going to be the darkest ink that I have, and then 80 is lighter, 60 is lighter, 40 is lighter, 20 being the lightest, 80 being the darkest. With that aspect being covered, now let's get into the actual application process and applying these clouds. Where I'm going to begin is with putting in the darkest areas first, which are going to be the cloud lines. So I'm going to go with straight black and I'm going to tattoo in the darkest areas. So I'm going to put the darker clouds down here at the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and make our way up lighter. So that's how I'm going to approach it, just using my artistic insight here. I'm going to start with straight black, and then I can maybe try a line with 80 and 60 just to see how they look and experiment a little bit with you all here. And I feel as artists, this is how we grow. This is how we get better, is by making these choices throughout our tattooing and figuring out what we like and what we don't like. So right here is where I'm going to stick with part 1. So I'm just going to kind of put my dots down real quick, just so that way I know that these are part 1 areas, and then over here on the other side of the dots is going to be part 2. First hard lines that I'm going to do are these right here in this area. Right now I am using the CNC Police 7-round liner for these lines. I'm running at 7 volts, and again I'm using the CNC Q2 Terminator here. And that's where I'm beginning. I'm beginning with 7-round liner hard lines right here. And then from here I'm going to work off of these and add shading. Let's say if you're doing like maybe a Chicano style design, or a design that has a lot of dense lines, then approaching clouds like this may be a way to go. Let's say if we're going to be doing a design with like dominant maybe wording, then we may want to go with part 2, which is going to be no line clouds. So you kind of get the idea in terms of when to choose different types of clouds. And again, that's going to come down fully to your artist's choice. That artist in you will kind of guide you throughout your way here. So all I'm doing right now is I'm simply implementing these lines, and I'm not going to go all the way up. I kind of want them to blend into each other here, so I'm going to stick with the bottom here. I can do like straight black right here and then coming into the 80. And that's just to create a little bit of interest there by making those little choices along the way. We could line everything with straight black if you want, like all the part 1 side. If you want to line everything with straight black, go ahead and do so, and then kind of work up from there. I feel that that's totally acceptable. I don't really feel like there's a right or a wrong. Just try not to get stuck in one spot for too long. Try to make choices as best as you can. I encourage you to really plan out things and think about it before diving into the tattoo. And you can see I want like these little tapers to come out as well. I personally like the way that that looks when we're tapering the clouds in like that, as opposed to just abrupt stops. So if you can, taper in on your ins and outs. Still using straight black here. So there we go. So my logic is to simply input the darkest areas first and then build from there. Next, I'm going to dip into the 80%, and I want to line this area and see how that looks. So we are taking away some saturation, removing some darkness here from these lines. I'm going to see if there's a noticeable difference or if it's just subtle. So it's very, very subtle. However, when we go in and begin shading with the 80, then I think we'll be able to really tell. So I'm just going to continue this out with the 80% over here. And then on the top one, we'll go ahead and maybe do 60. So you get the idea. I'm just kind of working the lines there until I have all of the lines complete. So I have the second part of the clouds completed with the 80%. It's just a very, very subtle difference. Most may not even be able to tell. This top area up here, I'm going to get a bit more brave in terms of experimenting, and I'm going to put this in with 40 up here. And this is the Greywash 40% that I am aligning with right now. I think that once we actually start shading in everything with these tones, we'll be able to really tell the difference here. Keep in mind, I encourage you, if you want to do all of these straight black, by all means, you can go ahead and do so. It's really going to be artist choice, and that's the point of these videos, is to allow you to grow as an artist, to make your own choices as an artist, and to figure out what you like as an artist. And there we go. We have the clouds completed and lined out now. This is what they are looking like right here. Now I'm comfortable enough to begin shading these clouds. I'm going to keep the same flow where this one's straight black down here. I could even do 80% down here, 60 right here, and then 20 up here, kind of take them up a notch. I think that'd be a cool way to approach it, but you can kind of hear my logic here. I'm now planning out how I want to approach this. So I'm probably going to do the 80% shading in here on this outer edge, or this lower edge right here, and in the middle we're going to do 60 to 40, and then up here we're going to do 20. So I think that would be a cool way to approach it. I can use the same 7-round liner that I was using for lining to shade, or I can use this Emalla 003 round liner, or I can use a round mag like you see this one right here, this So Long Tattooed 9-round mag. The idea is you can use what you're comfortable with. For me, I need to be able to anticipate the results that I'm applying, so for me to be the most accurate to the results that I'm anticipating, I'm going to go with this needle right here, just simply because I can work this needle better. I feel more comfortable with this needle over a round mag, a mag. You get the idea. So pick something that's comfortable for you. Here's the Emalla 3-round liner. I'm going to be running at 5.5 volts right now, and I'm going to begin applying the shading. And another reason why I'm going with such a tight needle is so that way I can get into these tighter areas and be more accurate with where I'm inputting ink. That's why I feel more comfortable with this needle right here. So when you're picking needles, make sure that you have that sense where you picked it for the right reason. So I'm going into the 80% right now, and then from here I'm going to do this bottom row of clouds with the 80%. And how I'm going to apply that is I'm going to start from the line, and I'm just simply going to stipple shade on up as you see me doing here. And I'm starting from the darkest point, which is the lining here, and I have my first shading there, and I'm going to be using motions whipping up like this and out, and I'm also going to be using some cross hatching along the way to smooth things out. So as you can see, I'm going to go over this again, going in a bit of a different direction here. The idea is to apply this smooth. I want a smooth transition here. I don't want my shading to be clumpy and chunky or anything like that. So I'm going to work it up in layers, and I'm just using the very, very tip of the needle here to layer the shading on. And then you're going to notice that I'll be going back and forth like this, and again, that's in efforts to smooth things out. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be applying this style of shading to these clouds. Bottom row is going to be at 80%. Then we'll just make our way up from there. The motion that I started applying the lines, that's the same motion that I'm going to try to keep. I don't want to kind of be all over the place. If I start one way, I want to finish all the clouds going that way and then continue accordingly. And you can do this with a round mag should you choose to do so. If you're more comfortable operating a round mag, by all means, I encourage you to do so. So if you haven't guessed it, you can guess that this is going to be shading in general is a time-consuming process. It is a delicate process that requires us to pay attention to detail when we are layering shading over one another, and this is how we go about getting smooth shading, I feel, rather than like chunky or clumpy shading where certain areas are dark by accident. We don't really want that, so we really have to take our time. So you can see now I'm providing a cross hatch so that way I can smooth all of this out here. And what I'm doing is I'm starting from the darkest point of the lines, if you notice, and I'm working up. So that's where I'm going to start. For these clouds too, I'm going to start at the darkest point and then work up from there. Keep in mind, I'm still using 80 now only. I'm using the 80% Greywash. And I'm just using whip shading right now in multiple directions. And when I do different directions, it's again just to smooth things out while adding more contrast and saturation to certain areas. And then I'm going to repeat this throughout the clouds here. I'm almost ready to move on. I'm really focusing in on the line areas as this area is important to me. I need this area to be darker coming off that line. I want it to be darker. That's just the idea that I have for it. Once you're happy with the area, from here we can begin moving on to the next part until you're done with the row here. And I'm going to continue that. As you see, this is a tighter area, but the technical application will stay the same. This requires a bit more patience to get through it as cleanly as possible. So you can see I'm starting in this motion. When I come over here, I'm going to keep that same motion and direction, and that's what provides me with that smooth look at the end and the cross hatching. Still using 80% Greywash. So that's the first layer of shading that I'm going to implement for that bottom row. All I have to do is finish this side in, and then I get to move on to the middle layer. So keep in mind, not all of them need to go this dark right here. We can kind of keep some lighter, some darker. You can kind of use your artistic insight there and figure out where you want your lighter points, where you want your darker points. For me, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit uniform, and I'm going to stick with the darkest areas coming off the lines, while still having some of these little clouds darker than others. Just doing a little bit of cross hatching to darken up some areas right here that I want darker. And I'm going to continue working over here as well. So now I'm going to come straight this way. This part, it really just requires a lot of patience and knowing where you're going to apply the next shading and why. I think if we're aligning all of those fundamentals along the way, then there shouldn't really be any issues. So I'm going to apply a little bit more shading as I want to have a little bit of variation, but they're still kind of in the same ballpark next to each other. So same thing, I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching over here. I just want to smooth things out right here just a little bit. And then I'm going to come on over here and finish this area. Still using 80 for those who are curious. Just haven't switched just yet. I will let you know when I do. The motions that I'm making, I always want to make sure that they're accurate, and that's where I want shading to be. I think that having that level of confidence is going to provide us with those sort of confident-like results. If you have any questions at all, please, I encourage you, drop them down below. I'll do my absolute best to assist you there. So you can see I'm not going for identical. I don't want them to be all identical. I am trying to go for a smooth, organic type of feel to them, so to speak. I'm not going for any sort of like uniform. However, I am just using same tone in this area. I'm just putting the shading in different areas, and I'm just kind of layering a little bit more in some areas over I am others. So that's what's really going on here. Just a little bit going up there. I encourage you to really use your artistic insight right here and place down the darker areas where you want them. Once you go ahead and get to an area or a place where you're happy with these clouds, then move on to the next ones. Don't go on to the next ones just yet because we're closer to them. Kind of finish this bottom row and then keep going on up. Just gonna add a little bit more shading and then move on. Alright, so far I'm really liking these results. I hope that you're achieving good results on your end. I'm going to move on to the middle part now, and I'm going to get a little bit brave here, and I'm going to use the 40%, and I'm going to go tremendously lighter right here in the middle. And again, we're going to repeat that process of starting from the darker points. I'm going to start whip shading from the darkest point on up, and I'm just going to try to keep as smooth and consistent as I can, making sure that my stipples align, the dots are all nice and cohesive, making sure that my hand speed and voltage is very similar to each and every pull. So keep in mind, this is the 40%. As you can see, we're getting some light shading there, not nearly as dark as that 80. Put another layer here. And then from here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to repeat that all the way across and still just using 40. And keep in mind that this is not by any means the right or wrong way or the only way to do clouds. Do what's comfortable for you. You can see that I'm trying different things and I'm experimenting with different values and tones here in different directions, and you can see that I'm just doing a lot of experimenting, and this is, I feel, where a lot of growth happens for artists, by figuring out techniques and what you like doing, why you don't like certain things. You get the idea. Still using 40. Right here I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching so that I can smoothen things out over here. You see things begin to smooth out. And then I'm going to proceed over here and do this area as well. Now, if they look similar to you, we have to remember that if this was on human skin and once they start healing, those different values are going to show up on human skin as it heals and ages. Which is why I still feel like it's important to practice the values and shading placements as well, so that way we can anticipate how it's going to heal and how dark certain things are. You get the idea. I'm just going to stipple all the way up this way. I'm going to whip out my shades here, so that way I create that transition. And then I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching right here to darken and smooth. That's the idea for cross hatching for me. I'm going to continue to smooth things out with the 40% right here. And then I'm going to move on to that top part there. I just want to smooth things out a little bit over here. So during this part, I encourage you to try not to fixate or focus on one thing, but get through the process, and then that way when you're done, you can see your final results from kind of like a bird's eye view, so to speak. But I really love the way that this is coming out. Now, if you're not liking the variation here, you can go darker in some areas, you can go lighter in some areas, so keep that in mind. And that's the point of these videos, is to figure out what you like, what you don't, what's right for you, what's not. Me personally, I kind of want to hit this whole line one more time right here with one more pass, and I want to go a little bit higher than I did on all the other ones, so that way it created a little bit more transition and smooth things out here. Some cross hatching here. And then I'm going to repeat that over here as well. Bring it a little bit higher. Just like that. And then now I'm going to move on to this top part up here, and I'm going to use the 20% to apply these clouds up here. Now I'm on the last 20% right here on the highest part, using the lightest gray wash that I have. And I'm going to keep the same application going, where I just use whip shades to lay down the shading here and some cross hatching. That's the first layer right there. And I'm going to proceed till I get all the way down, as we did with the other layers of the clouds. I'm going to do that right here. So I have the first layer down of my shading here on this last row of clouds, and I'm going to kind of continue that process and build all the way up just using the 20% now. And this one up here, I'm going to actually bring these a little higher because I want it to kind of fade up here. I kind of let you watch me build this up here real time, so you can see how I'm approaching it. So you can see I'm just gradually building up these shadings, and again, I am using just the very tip of my needle. I'm letting the very tip do all the work for me here. Don't want to go too dark on these. I want these to try to kind of be the lightest areas. These I don't feel would require too much shading here. simply because they are supposed to be the lighter areas. That's the way I wanted these to be. You could do the opposite. You could put the darker and lighter areas wherever you'd like. Still using the 20. I'm going to do just a little bit of shading over here. Me personally, I'm liking the way that these are coming out. This actually looks really smooth and really nice. I'm happy with these results that we are getting. Still using 20 right here. Doing a little bit of cross hatching to smoothen things out. These shadings can go up and be as dark or as light or as high as you want them. I wouldn't fixate on trying to get it identical to mine, but more so something that suits your likes. Bring these one last, maybe a few more layers here to smoothen things out. And then I'll take a look at the whole thing and see if I want to make any adjustments accordingly. I'm personally loving the way that this looks right here. Now let's say for you these look a little too close together. By all means you can get straight black and add some straight black down here. For demonstration purposes I suppose that I can actually do so. So I'm going to get a little bit of straight black and I'm going to just put a layer or two on this bottom area to create a little bit of like variation there, a little bit of differentiation from the others. You don't have to do this, you can if you'd like. But having some areas straight black down here would be cool in my opinion. Again, to each their own, fully your choice as the artist. If you want to add straight black down here, you could do so. Don't have to. Here we have the final results for part 1 of tattooing clouds. I personally love the way that part 1 of how I tattoo clouds reads. It reads real nice. I'm glad that we were able to do this on demonstration with you all, and I do hope that this can give you some sort of light, or at the very least give you some sort of understanding on where you can begin to tattoo clouds. Take what you want, leave what you don't. Should you have any questions, I highly encourage you to drop a comment down below and I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring that bell, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. I do have social medias under the same name as his YouTube channel. I would truly appreciate your support over there as well. If you find my videos helpful and enjoy my channel, consider becoming a Patreon or sending over a super thanks, as I would greatly appreciate your support. That would be it for part 1. Be sure to stick around for part 2 and part 3. Thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. You have a great day.